It is now week 6 of the Elestrals Championship League, and I'm up against LUCK piloting Earth and Wind. As I've said before, wind is a scary element for me, because I know I cannot stall out effectively with water, because that gives them ample time to set up Exaltair, Pigas just start popping back row, Burning Spirits, and they don't really care if I'm just trying to stall out or not. They can easily go over the top. So I definitely want to keep up the offensive pressure, but the problem comes in the Earth package, where Earth can easily beat me down. So trying to be aggressive to make sure I can get over the wind stuff, but also make sure I'm not just getting run over by the Earth stuff, which usually can hit bigger numbers, is an interesting balance to strike. So that's kind of the goal of my deck this week. And the easiest way I can think to do that is running a burn package here. So I got the 3 Krakatuga, 3 Eruption. The main idea is that since I'm most scared of wind, I want to take advantage of the fact that wind is very expensive, meaning that Eruptions and Krakatugas can help me close out the game very quickly. And then against Earth itself, while might be a bit difficult to stick a body, but if I can definitely try to go over the top, because Earth does like to throw out spirits, especially onto their Demeter. So that also gives me ample opportunity to just cast Eruption, Krakatuga. And also, even if they've got a big guy on board, as long as if Luck has a big guy on board, I can always just try to special ascend to Krakatuga if I can keep a body on board and try to just kind of take care of that big attacker by casting Eruption, Burning for Spirits, popping it, and maybe trying to close out the game. So I figure that even against Earth, it should do all right, and I can always pivot some stuff in my side deck to help with that. But all in all, just kind of be able to close out opportunities is the main goal of this deck. And I just, through playing this, I was thinking in the Earth matchup, what I can do is, instead of trying to use burn to close out the game like I'll probably be trying to do in wind, instead I can try to limit what Luck can do by preemptively casting Eruptions to just lower his spirit count to awkward numbers. And as this is the main focus of the deck, and I have no way of searching it, just 3 of each of them, because I really do want to see them throughout the match. To complement burn, I am running my 5 guys core as usual. Got the 3 Nekruff, 3 Galaxy, and the 3 Smoltuga here. This is really great against wind because I can, again, just more easily beat over their stuff. Nekruff being a 5 attacker is great, and even into the Earth matchup, I can trade for some stuff, burn an extra spirit. That is great, honestly. And then Galaxy here is just a great way to combo with Smoltuga to create some decent 5 attackers. This also plays around PTA, which is really nice, which Nekruff cannot, though it is a bit more susceptible to Gorgon's Gaze stuff, so I do have to watch out for that. And then of course Smoltuga just helps me search out my Fire Elestrals, and I did go for more of a fire base to be more aggressive this time around. But of course Galaxy does help out with that. As you'll see with the rest of my deck, just kind of hitting those big numbers here for wind stuff is a main focus, and I can, if I'm running into primary Earth, where I do think the Galaxies are less useful at that just static 5 attack, I do have some side options for that. To pair with Galaxy, I do run the 2 Molstation just to be able to hit 6 attack. This is great in both wind and the Earth matchup. Against Sorlet, this can hit over a Sorlet, though it does lose if it casts if I have a Molstation on board and my opponent casts a Sorlet, because Luck can easily just switch its position. But ideally, if I can keep Galaxy on board, throw this out, or if I just need to throw it out and swap its attack, it's really solid there. That also is relevant in the Earth matchup, though I don't really want to be relying on it as much because it does get a bit expensive. But in the wind matchup, I think that's fine because with wind costing so many spirits, expanding my own just kind of keeps us more at parry, and it does, again, provide pressure, which I really want. So I thought Molstation was super solid, but then getting into the fire cards to help me better compete, I've got the 1 Kinleo here, just to be able to pop stuff. I don't think this will be as important in the wind matchup. I'd rather just kind of be a bit more efficient than trying to throw spirits on the Kinleo, especially since Luck does have access to Earthquake. So my fear is that I try to go for a Kinleo pop and Luck just Gorgon's Gaze it and then can Earthquake it for decent value because of course extra spirits are on it, versus just be able to cast out Nekruff and attack. That's a lot more efficient as well. But also, speaking of efficient attackers, to help round things out, I've got the 3 Volcaries here, and of course 3 Volcanic Force to pair with it, just to be a more aggressive fire deck, because this helps it hit 6 attack, meaning I can hit over Sorlet, and then of course all the smaller guys as well. And I do think this is also great into the Earth side of the deck. Be able to hit 6 attack to hit over Visceruses, assuming there's not another Viscerus on board, is really strong. And then on top of that, I can also compete with Stadiums if Luck is primarily on Earth Beaters, which I could see him definitely being on. So I just thought that this was a very solid core of just really efficient, high-statted Elestrals to attack stuff with consistency with Smoltuga, and then of course Volcanic Force to help me compete with Stadium stuff, and also beat over to be able to compete with either both the wind and the Earth side, though primarily the wind side. The reason for these ratios are 2 Molstation, because I'm already running the 3 Galaxy, and I think the Expendrel to get 6 attack is going to be super relevant, so I did want more of that, but I don't want to really be relying on it too much, so I thought 2 copies was fine there. Only the 1 Kinleo, though, because I don't want to be relying on Nexus too much. I only have Volcanic Forge for a Nexus bank that isn't another Elestral, so I don't want to be heavily relying on it, but I do like having access to it, especially since I can search it out, and then just kind of maxing out on the most efficient cards and my consistency engine. It's pretty standard stuff as you've seen from week to week. Moving over to the counter runes, I run 3 Tsunami, 3 Gorgon's Gaze, 2 Pandora's Box, 1 PTA, and 2 Shield of Achilles. So pretty obvious stuff here since I'm worried about Wind Nexus. Pandora's Box is great to keep luck off of stuff, just kind of void those Aeolus searches is going to be great. Gorgon's Gaze is probably the best utility card, while against Wind Nexus it isn't as important because, of course, Exaltair still burns for 2. It can stop Exaltair from attacking at the cost of 2 spirits, so that can keep more spirit damage off of myself if that's necessary. And also, I really like Gorgon's Gaze and Tsunami because Luck has access to both P-Gust and Equal Links for rune removal, and both these can be timed in such a way to get around them. Like if Luck targets it, I can just flip it face up and get some value out of it, which I really do appreciate. So big reason why I max out on those two. Also, in case there's some Hydrake shenanigans, Gorgon's Gaze is great for that. If some big beater shenanigans in Earth, such as Tectoros and Viscerus, Gorgon's Gaze during the battle step can void their attack, so they can cause them to just die on attack into my 5 attackers. And then as for the other round of runes, PTA, wanted at 1 copy. I was debating between PTA or Shield, but against the rune removal cards, Poison Tipped Arrow, especially against P-Gust, is really good. And there's some scenarios where Poison Tipped Arrow could be really strong, but there's also some scenarios where it just isn't very good. So I figured just the 1 copy, if it comes up, it does awesome. If not, I do think it's the least useful one. But I also didn't want to max out on Shield. I kind of like the versatility here because while Shield is great against battle stuff to kind of postpone some attacks, get some established bodies on board, which can be really nice, or punish heavy spirit buildups, against rune removal, it just dies. So I really don't want to be just seeing a ton of these and just having them die to rune removal because I can't really deal with that. So especially if I'm up against, like, say, a Twindra, Pantera stuff, or any sort of Ascension shenanigans, I also think this will be also pretty crucial to have. So I do want to have access to it. So all in all, I just thought this was a pretty good spread. Just kind of got the most versatile ones and max copies, and then just kind of checking out the rest, hoping I see them when I need to. And then right out of the main deck with the generic Invoke runes, 2 Ambrosia, 1 Nectar of the Gods, 2 Resting on Your Laurels. So I do want to play this more aggressive with the efficient attackers kind of building up into the burn stuff. So I figured I don't really need to max out all of these. Ambrosia, I don't really want to, I want to see them, sure, but I don't want a handful of them. So I figured 2 is really nice just to give me some extra spirit recovery to help outlast Luck. 2 Resting on Your Laurels because I don't have Celestial removal, so if I fall behind, I really want this to keep up with it. And especially if Luck is doing any sort of Nexus shenanigans or beater shenanigans in Earth, this card can become live really easily to just help clean up a board and get ahead if need be. So I don't really want to have a whole bunch of them because I'd rather be ahead and trying to hit with Elestrals, ascend into Krakatuga, but in the event that I just need to equalize on board, I do still want access to at least 2 Laurels. And then the 1 Nectar of the Gods, I've really been liking the 1 just because whenever I cast 2, it feels like I'm using up so many spirits that I'm putting myself at a deficit, but just if I find the 1, feels really good with that extra card advantage. So 1 copy, I think, just to hopefully see it. If, like, even at 3 copies, sometimes you just have games where you don't see it. So sure, I might see it less, but it's better. I'd rather just see the 1 every now and then than find multiples and just feel like I'm using up spirits and just dying because of it. Moving over to the spirit deck, I do have a primary fire focus, so I run the 12 Vipyro here and the 8 Leviathan because I still have a solid water core here. As we've seen, of course, I need water for Krakatuga, and I've still got my Galaxies, my Smoltugas, and my Molstations, which also have to expend to swap its attack, and the Tsunamis. So I still want plenty of them, but again, just primary fire focus, especially with the 2-cost eruptions I want to be setting off and having to expend stuff with Krakatuga. I really want to focus primarily on these. So this ratio, I think, is going to be good to hit that balance to make sure I got plenty of water to cast my water stuff and plenty of fire to be able to, well, burn Luck. Moving over to the side deck, since this deck is primarily built with wind in mind, I want to have sides out to better fit into the earth matchup. So to start out with that, I've got the 2 extra Kinleo, just so I can make sure I can pop stuff more efficiently, or not more efficiently, but more readily, because sometimes they are bigger. Well, actually, most of the time they're bigger than my attackers. So being able to just pop them and possibly hit them for 2 spirits seems super solid. 3 Wormite, because its ability to drop my opponent's Elestral's attack by 4 means that Wormite can a lot of times easily trade into these big beaters that a lot of my other Elestrals can't. And notably, while it's easier to hit back over it, Earth doesn't really struggle with that. So that's like, it's a moot point downside of this card if Earth just naturally can do that anyway. So this can be great in place of something like Volcarides, which is usually a bit more setup reliant. But of course, if I'm running the Kinleo, I need more Nexus Banks. That was really quick pivot there, back to the Kinleo. So I do run 2 Atlantis as the, not the final card I'm going to side in, but the final main deck card I'm going to side in. And really, I just want another Nexus Bank for Kinleo. And I was mulling over it because I could run Hephaestus, Hammer in that slot. And there's merits to Hammer, or both of those cards, especially Hephaestus being a true, like a Nexus Bank that can just sit on board. So of course, I'm not using up a card to be able to Nexus with Kinleo. But when I thought about it, it really isn't doing much. Hammer is not useful in this matchup. I mean, it's variable attack that's niche at best, and Luck has Earthquake. So I don't really want to be committing a card like that unless if I'm Nexusing, and even then that's still 2 spirits. And then Hephaestus, it's like, what, do I just enchant it and keep it around, hope I draw another Kinleo? It's just kind of saying there's a dead card on board using up another spirit, if that's the case. Great if I find another Kinleo, but also I'm not really relying on it. I'm hoping maybe the one Kinleo will help me set up board and I can just go from there. So when I was looking for another Nexus Bank, I saw Atlantis. Because the upside that this has that none of the other options do is, if luck is on Earthbeers and they like their Floy Forest Stadium, this, even Misenchanted, gets rid of that. And that to me is invaluable. So I think this is the way to go, because at worst, I just enchant it with fire, Nexus over to Kinleo. Second best, actually I do think best, is I get rid of the stadium and it's trading 1 for 1 anyway. So I'm happy I found this answer, because on like Hephaestus was just, it hasn't been working for me these past few weeks. I mean, we even saw in the matchup against Baron that he bricked on Hephaestus hammer stuff. Like, it just isn't doing much. So I really like this card in here for that purpose. And honestly, if I'm finding all my water stuff, which sure, I'm going to be cutting back some of it as I'll go over with, I can always properly enchant this to hit over something if the situation demands it. Like if I don't have a Kinleo, I can always just buff up my water stuff and it still works really, really well. But as you can see, definitely more fire focused here with this side deck option. So I do run the 2 extra Vipyro to be able to switch out with 2 Leviathan, because what I'm cutting to include these cards are the 2 of the Galaxy, and then 1 the Molstation. So I'm going back to the same lineup I ran against Baron, while of course I got more flexibility to be able to send to the Krakatuga. If luck is on Earthbeers, I don't really want to be expending to swap Molstation's attack, and sometimes it just won't even matter anyway. Like against a Icirrus, if it gets out another Icirrus, I don't want to crash the Icirrus, and I can always have this Molstation in place of, say, like a Warmite or even a Kinleo to help clean it up, and that's way more valuable. And then while I do like the swap with those Smoltugas with the Galaxies, I don't need as much. Like, I don't necessarily need as much pressure in that matchup compared to the Wind matchup, I feel, which is the main reason why I want to pair Galaxy and Molstation in the way I did. I am fine in the Earth matchup, just casting this out in defense, getting my search, and going from there. So I do expect to cut all, again, just 1 Molstation and the 3 Galaxy that can say, let's go in for the 3 Warmite. And it really doesn't matter. We're just kind of counting up cards to match this number. I'm cutting 2 Volcaries because, again, I need to find exactly Volcanic Forge for it to really do anything. Sure, I can do some things if I have extra fires on board, but Warmite, again, just more efficient. It's 1 card, drops line by 4 attack. That just does more than Volcaries, and it's a 1 card combo that if luck decides to shield, well, he still has to deal with it, and it's not going to be pleasant whatsoever. So that kind of cutting out the 2 Volcaries covers in the 2 Kinleo. And what about the 2 Atlantis? Well, that's just going to be the 2 Pandora's Box, because against Earth, I could use against Romagem, but that's about it, so I don't feel like I need it, so I'm just siding it out. I arguably could have thrown in more counter runes to definitely help deal with that, but at the same time, with something like Equal Links, do I want to side more shield? Not really. PTA really isn't that great, and I've already maxed out all the counter runes I want, so I'm fine just kind of cutting these 2 out for a card that can at least act as rune removal, stadium removal specifically, if the situation demands it. As for the rest of my side deck, I run 1 Tadpuff, 1 Pandora's Box, and 1 Resting on Your Laurels. I really was just trying to round it out. I thought, hey, if I'm seeing I'm struggling to keep a body on board to get into Krakatuga, I could always just splash in the 1 Tadpuff to be able to quickly ascend into it. I don't know how often that'll come up, but I figured let's just throw it in there. Extra Pandora's Box if Wind, if I really feel like I need to find the extra one to shut down Luck, but since Luck does not have Elichick, I'm not too worried about him finding the Aeolus too consistently, and that's like the only thing in Wind that would really search out. I mean, if Hydrake, that's the big one. If he's on Hydrake, or maybe even like Stratamoth, if he's on one of those, that's when I would want to side this card in. But against just basic Wind Nexus stuff, I think 2's just fine. But still nice to have the 3. And then the 1 extra Resting on Your Laurels if I feel like I really need some extra removal cards. I got no clue what I'd cut out for these cards, hence why they're all, I didn't kind of group them with my main siding out stuff. They're just there to have some options to do on the fly. And that's my deck profile for this week. I honestly don't know what to expect because this is my first week bringing Burn properly in this form, so I don't know if I can line it up well enough to Eruption for game. We'll see. I think it's a good shot, especially against Wind. We'll see against Earth. That one's a bit more iffy. And I was thinking, like, do I just want to side out the Burn stuff against Earth? But I do think I do want to try to go over the top. And honestly, I just want to play Burn as well. That's the other big thing. So we'll see if it'll work out. But now I want to hear from you all. What do you think of my deck profile? Is there anything that you think is amiss that you would switch out? I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. You can also find all my fellow casters' channels linked down in the description below. Luck will be right at the top because he is my opponent this week. And also down there, you can find the link to the playlist of all my ECL content if you've fallen behind and need to get caught up on anything. I'll also have it linked up in a title card up above. And if you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you're notified when I do upload more content. But with that being said though, look forward to more content coming out real soon.